Hello, hello, and welcome back to Shelf Talks, the podcast where we dive deep into the journeys of female founders bringing their product based businesses to retail shelves. Today, I'm sitting down with Toni Covington, the co founder and CEO of Oktane Energy, a functional energy drink brand focused on clean ingredients and sustained energy. Coming from an energy drink buying background, I know how competitive this category is within health and wellness. That makes me even more excited to hear Toni's journey and how she's earned shelf and cooler space, which is even harder to get in stores. So, welcome, Toni.
Thank you so much for having me. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to share Octane's journey, how we've become really pivotal into the fitness and health and wellness category, and such like energy drink space, which is super competitive. It's some would say it's super saturated, but we've managed to stay here. We're in our fourth year as of July of next year. We'll be
Amazing.
4 years old, so that's a major feat for us.
Yeah, congratulations on that. That's pretty
Thank
amazing.
you.
Yeah. So, take us back to before you started Octane Energy. What was life like?
My So, I'm still a corporate girly. I'm a director of operations management for a government contract within DHS, and I kind of grew myself within the facility operations space and DevOps. So I understood just project management, customer readiness, being customer focused and customer driven, and knowing how to execute a project from cradle to grave. And I kind of took that strategy in forming a company called Just a Sip. And this was back in 2018. I started this company. And going back a little further, I used to be a competitive bodybuilder and the NPC. And I think I did about two shows, and it was tiring. It was vigorous. I'm working a full time job, and I was also a mom of two, a single mom of two. And just that go-getter mentality, and it just flourished into wanting to create something on the back scene. Being in the gym for hours at a day, you're realizing that you're taking a good amount of time away from your family, a good amount of time away from what you can develop for yourself. And this is for me, not talking bad about bodybuilding, but this is what I needed for myself.
Right.
So I wanted something more. I felt like bodybuilding created a great space for me, and it created a lot of relationships for me. And thus, I saw a gap in the market for women that are hardcore bodybuilders. The hormonal challenges, you lose hair, the how do I say this? People like to not talk about steroid use, but in that bodybuilding
Environment. Yeah.
environment is like a necessary evil if you want to be at the top of the top of the top. And that was just a risk that I wasn't willing to take to compromise my femininity and things of that nature. I won't get into the details. But I saw a gap in that market when it came to beauty and health and wellness. So I created this company called Just a Sip, which focused on all natural hair care products, serums, and things of that nature. We scaled it, doing $10,000 a month. I mean, we got into Walmart, beauty supply stores, you name it. And then COVID happened. And because I'm in facility operations, my facility manager hat just came on, and we pivoted our marketing to PPE. So we started supplying masks, the hand sanitizers, you name it. Because in that moment, in that atmosphere, who was thinking about a hair serum?
Yeah.
No, your people are dying around you, things of that nature. You're trying to make sure that your family is safe. So we pivoted, and in the same time frame, we were still trying to keep that operational awareness alive when it came to hair care, while people are inside, whether that was doing sponsorships, things of that nature. So we kept it as well alive as we could. In that process, I met my now husband. We started dating, and we formed our relationship. And he wanted to marry me. I told him that I didn't want a ring. I wanted, to build a business together and, have something substantial for our generation and our kids. So one day I'm at the gym, and I see people walking around with these energy drinks. And I'm like, what is this? Now, me being the ballsy entrepreneur that I am, I'm like, we could do this. I go back home to my husband, and he's like, I'm like, hey, I keep seeing these people walk around with energy drinks. He was like, "Yeah, I love energy drinks." And at the time, I'm just not into I don't know
You hadn't
what it
really explored them or tried them or
not
anything.
at all.
Oh, wow.
Nothing of the sort.
Okay.
And he's a former Marine, and he's also a power lifter. So he tells me his story of, downing energy drinks. He comes from that era of like Jack 3D. Is it Jack 3D? Yeah. he comes from that era, the hardcore supplements and stuff, and being
Yeah.
a former Marine, they're always downing energy drinks and, the hardcore caffeine. So he says, "Well, why don't we make something that is more friendly, diabetic friendly, healthier, not as much caffeine, and, for women, that sometimes have that mom pooch, it doesn't make you bloated."
Mm-hmm.
So, a readiness type of drink. We're thinking about all the things.
That, yeah.
And so he, in some sense, I knew he wanted to propose to me, but I said, "Do not buy me a ring, please." He was like, "Are you sure?" I'm like, "Yes, don't buy me a ring." So he said, "Well, what do you want?" I'm like, "I want to start a business. Like, let's start this energy drink business." And he thought I was joking, but I was super duper serious. And we was thinking of names and all the jazz. And then one day we do all the documentation, we get the LLC, we do all this stuff. So we're now in the moment where we're about to do launch photos and we're all getting ready and we go there and he proposes to me with an energy drink contract.
Oh, wow.
And it was so cool. He was
That
so
is
smooth.
cool.
He was so smooth with it, and, we went into formulation with Drink Labs, who's still our partner to this day. We went into R&D with Drink Labs 2021. We launched Octane 2022. We sold out that same year, and then we rebranded our can because the first can was super dark.
Yeah.
It was super duper dark, and
Yeah.
this is just, just fetal us not really knowing. Just not really
Just starting.
starting,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
starting, just we're putting what we're supposed to have on it.
Mm-hmm.
And we sold out, praise God. And in that moment, we knew we had something. We sold out at Olympia. It was our first time at Olympia. And being a former bodybuilder, I felt like that was such a full circle moment because I went there as a sponsored athlete. And
Yeah.
now I'm having my brand there, selling out. I'm like, this is badass.
Wow. That
Oh
is.
yeah, it was
That is,
amazing.
wow. First of all, that's great. Like, yeah, don't buy me a ring. Like, let's build like legacy, which,
Yeah.
that's amazing. And I love that. So just taking it back though, prior to you selling out that year, when you decided to start this energy drink business, especially with you not really even having experience with energy drinks, what was the first step in even connecting to a manufacturer that could help you?
So we did a lot of research. We called a lot of co-packers, formulation teams, and it was for us because this was all coming out of our pockets. We didn't have grants, we didn't have backers, we didn't have angel investors and things of that nature. This is all funding from us. So we wanted to make sure that we wasn't paying an arm and a leg
Mm-hmm.
and wanted to make sure that we were sustaining our lifestyles, understanding that like the first year we was probably going to spend about a good $20,000. So we wanted to do a pilot run. We called around to a few places. Some didn't want to really go into the process of giving us samples, making sure that is whatever flavor that we're profiling, that they're actually giving us that actual flavor once the samples are done. We went through about 4 rounds of just trying to choose the perfect formulation team that also did co-packing. And a lot of companies didn't do that. So when we found Drink Labs, they were just the perfect relationship for us. So they took the time with us. And, normally a formulation team, they will just do all of the steps for you. And, you pay them for
Yeah.
it. We wanted to learn ourselves because we're the type of people that we want to be able to talk about our product and talk to our product, understanding what's going in it, what's going to be beneficial for the consumer, things of that nature. And also, we're catering to a specific community and clientele to where they're going to expect you to say what it does. So we didn't want to go in blindsided. So we took about 8 months to really learn our formulation, understand the process, calling all of the different alum flavors, 10 point, bulk supplements, understanding what each ingredient is going to do for that person, if it's going to be an allergen, if it's going to cause spikes in heart rates, things of that nature. We went full throttle with it. And it didn't cost us anything because we wanted to learn it
Mm-hmm.
and they did it for us with pleasure.
Well,
They was there for us when it came to like whatever resources that we needed, but they held our hand through the entire process. So that's why we still that's why we're still with them to this day.
yeah. So
Yeah.
did you go in with the things you kind of had referenced at the beginning of this conversation around like we want it to be low caffeine, we wanted it to be,
Yeah. So What the benefit is with, and I'm sure other formulation teams does do this as well, but what the benefit was with Drink Labs is that they do a full scale R&D going 2 years out, what is trending in the consumer market, whether it's flavor, whether it's different colors, things of that nature. When we came out with orange mango, it was a pairing of like orange and hibiscus, like what is trending with those different type of
Mhm.
flavors and combinations. So they would have like a consumer trend, and that's how we were also able to just nail what our flavors are going to be. So we did have different variations of how much caffeine that we wanted, like how much carbonation level did we want? Did we want it to be like like a Sprite type of carbonation? Do we want it to be like a ginger ale carbonation? So they we were very detailed and strategic with how we wanted that flavor to taste when you first sip. Did you want to go back and sip it again? Did you want to chase it down with a vodka? Did you want to water it down? We thought about all the different things because our consumers, we don't promote it, but they do,
Of course, yeah.
use it as a cocktail, things of that nature. So,
Yeah. That sounds like
yeah,
a great partner.
they are amazing.
Yeah.
They are amazing. They are amazing.
So how many flavors did you launch with?
So we launched with one flavor, which was our watermelon kiwi. And what did we do? Watermelon kiwi was just our flagship flavor. Once we rebranded our can, we then came out with, sorry, I want to show it down.
Yeah, sure, definitely. This is on YouTube too, so anyone watching on YouTube can check it out.
So when we first came out with watermelon kiwi, for us, the can was just super duper dark. We felt like this definitely was not shelf ready. It did not scream to a buyer. And when we sold out at Olympia in 2022, we got a lot of eyeballs. And so much so, we ended up getting a cease and desist from a major energy drink company because they said our can looked too familiar with the icon. And I will say in that moment, we're like, we made it.
When you get a cease and desist, you made it.
We made
Well,
it.
somebody's noticing, right? Somebody's paying attention. Yeah.
But like I said, by the grace of God, because we sold out and we knew what we wanted to do, we went ahead and changed our packaging. So by the time that cease and desist came, we already had a different packaging. So we had our lawyer draft up the letter like, hey, here's
You've
our
already
new
changed it.
packaging.
Yeah.
We're not taking this from you.
Was the packaging change like what you guys identified after you produced the cans, or did you get any customer
Yes.
feedback as well from that?
So the customer feedback was actually from a grant that we won with Comcast. We did a 90-day commercial with Comcast. And because of that, we went through their legal team, like what you can and can't have on a can, like dietary supplements, making sure there's no any buzzwords like fat loss or things of that nature, because, people can get sued.
Right.
So we went through that trial and error with them before we launched the campaign for the commercial. And like I said, because of the steps that we took, we were able to come out with our new label. So we were able to take that back into market, fresher look,
Yeah, nice.
more retail ready. And
Mhm.
that's with this can, that's how we got our first distribution deal.
Yeah, that's great. So
Yeah.
so selling out at Olympia, I mean, I've never been, but I hear like definitely there's so many brands there, definitely lots of consumers for eyes and new trial opportunities. But, there's a lot of legacy brands there as well.
Yeah.
So, what was your strategy in standing out and being able to sell out the show?
My relationships that I built over the years of bodybuilding. People knew me, they knew my company, Just a Sip. That customer base that I established with Just a Sip, they followed Octane. And that just goes to show that, being on social media, I'm very introverted. Let's say that. I'm very
Same,
introverted.
same.
I, I am very introverted. And people will see me, they're like, really? I'm like, I'm very much introverted. But when I need to go out and rep my company, I rep myself. And in that stage of bodybuilding, I was my billboard. And people understood who I was as a corporate single mom, building a brand and also bodybuilding. And how does she do it? How is she doing all of this stuff? Right. So people like that. People love a story. People love a good organic story.
Yeah.
And that's how I was able to build that brand and build my brand. They always say, if you build it right, it will follow. And that's
Mhm.
what my customer base did from being that bodybuilder, doing Just a Sip, and then building Octane. They followed me through.
Yeah.
And
They trusted you
that
already. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So they saw me from other sponsorship events. that I was there as an athlete. And, I have photos of them saying, "Oh my God, remember this photo?" Like, back in 2017 or what have you. I'm like, "Oh my God." Like, people were coming there to see me and
Oh,
to
wow.
see the brand. So that to me was that strategy build. We also did a lot of marketing. We had a good amount of brand ambassadors as well that we developed before going to a big event like Olympia because, we're still a baby. We're still a baby brand. We're literally going off of the marketing that we're just pushing out there, whether it was, "Hey, come see us at booth such and such. We're going to be interviewing such and such." Somebody that's a friend of mine that they have seen me with over the years, but they're still a big name in that industry. So of course you're going to go and see that person and
Yeah.
also see me and the brand of Octane. So that's kind of how we really built that. It was organic. It wasn't a lot of like money into it. It wasn't a lot of fluff. It was just my strategic building over the years of that
Mhm.
community.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. So then after Olympia and kind of really having the platform to say this is something, what was your strategy in regards to getting into that first retail store?
So this goes back to just faith. I will say it was a faith moment. So in the moment I was working at the Pentagon, I was in charge of all of the EV charging stations that was going to be put up on site there at the Pentagon. I had to go and do like a run of getting some materials, and I was at this location. I won't name the area, but I saw all these vending machines in the back. Like they looked like they were ready for maintenance. And I said, "Oh, I want to go see like if they're selling any. We could fix it up ourselves." And I went in there and I'm like,
You
"Hey,
just
this
walked
is"
in?
yeah, I did. I did. I just walked in and this gentleman met me. He was like, "Hey, could I help you?" I'm like, "Hey, what is this place?" He was like, "Oh, we're a distribution center." I'm like, "What do you distribute?" I'm ballsy that way. I just did.
I love that.
Dealing dealing with DHS, you have to be. He says, "Oh, we do schools within the district. We do convenience stores." I'm like, "Well, what do you distribute?" So I started seeing all of these different warehouse stackables of like snacks and beverages and, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, you name it. So I'm like, what else do you guys distribute? I saw Rip It. And I'm like, oh, that's an old school energy
Mhm.
drink. Like okay, so you guys do energy drinks. So it was like, yeah, you want a card? I'm like, yeah, who's your buyer here? And he gives me the card of the guy. Come to find out he's the co-founder. His father started it just, they have no paper trail, but they were massive. They started back in the 1970s. And they just have no paper trail, but they were master distribution. I came back home. I said, "Hey, guess what I ran into today?" He was like, "A distribution company." And my husband was like, "Get out." I'm like, "Seriously?" So we sent the guy an email. We sent him our pitch deck. The next week, he holds a meeting, and he was like, "Yeah, let's give you guys a try." And we got a distribution deal with the United Distribution out in Hyattsville,
Wow.
and we are currently in 120 C stores, and we got into a university and, universities are tough, but we were we managed to get into it, but that was our first, go at it. Just me doing work and just being ballsy.
That's amazing. I mean, just walking in and just taking a chance got you into 120 stores.
I've done that a lot.
Don't be scared to just walk in, right? That's the
Well, do scared just walk in. But yeah, that's how that started.
yeah. Once you were able to get into those 120,
Mhm.
number 1, like, how did you build up inventory? Like, how did you know how much inventory you needed to support those stores?
So, for us, that was hard because, they were buying by the caseload, and it didn't turn into pallet. And at first, we were just starting to be just pilot runs when it came to our inventory, like 5,000, 10,000. So when we started seeing the growth, we was like, okay, how are we going to keep up with this? Because it wasn't just the distribution that we had. We also had nutritional stores asking for us. We had gyms asking for us. We were also sponsoring a good amount of events that was asking for caseloads. So we started pipelining 4 months out, in regards to inventory, like, if we hit that 6-month mark and we're running into 2,000 cans less, then we need to start another run.
Yeah.
So that's how we kinda pivoted into that, and when we started realizing that we were scaling, it was like, "Okay, well, how we're going to manage our runway because, like I said, this is coming out of our pocket.
Mhm.
And so we started getting into grants. We started getting into pitches, and I'm no pitcher. Not at all. My husband's the pitcher. Like I said, I'm introverted and I have a slight stage fright. But if you put me on the spot, I'll talk. But
You were on the stage, like, in those
and
competitions. How did you do that?
and so
You're like, "I didn't really have to talk?"
I'd have to talk. But that's how we scaled in that sense. I'm very nuanced when it comes to pipelining at least 4 months out, 6 months out in regards to what we're trying to target. In our second year, we got talks and got looks from Shark Tank. And I think, they can give their opinion. I think it's because of our name, the way our logo looks. We look interesting and we weren't ready. So I turned it down.
Wow.
We weren't ready in regards to the numbers.
Mhm.
And also just coming from the entertainment purposes, I felt like we didn't have that like ready for TV type of energy. Some would say we come off kind of militant, but I felt like we weren't entertainment ready in a sense. And I felt like we weren't financially ready to where they wanted to see us scaling. Like
Got
I
it.
just wasn't we weren't ready for that. So I turned it down. And I will say you have to be ready to say no,
Mhm.
even if you know it could scale you. You
Yeah,
gotta say no.
yeah. So you were saying that the gyms were calling and you were getting other
Mhm.
calls to get into retail. Where did they see you? Was that because you had those 120 locations in which that was kind of your platform, or how do you think that
The
they were actually?
marketing the marketing that we were doing, we were putting a lot of finances behind our marketing,
Okay.
and, we have a really stellar brand ambassador team, and we put a lot of effort into our brand ambassador team, just highlighting them a good amount, and also being at a lot of events. We got selected to go to Newtopia. We couldn't go because I was due to deliver. We got a sponsorship with the D1 football team in Paris, France, Diable Rouge, so a good amount of the things that we were getting, the marketing that we was having behind it was highlighting us so much so that where these people were coming to us.
Yeah.
Our first major sponsorship was with the PFL. They came to us and they wanted us to do like a million something dollars. I'm like, we're not ready for that. We're not ready for that type of financial commitment. But then I knew that we were doing something right because those types of companies were coming to us.
Yeah.
And I felt like, okay, well, if these types of companies are coming to us, what are we doing that is screaming that we are scaling, but why isn't that reflecting financially?
Mhm.
So I wanted to go back to the drawing board and say, okay, well, if we're marketing that well, then why aren't our numbers hitting that same leverage, if you will.
Right,
I
right.
wanted to make sure that it made sense. I didn't want people coming to us, investing in us and thinking that we're gonna invest in them and the math wasn't right.
Mhm.
It didn't make me intimidated. I think we just needed to scale back and say, okay, well, we're in these C stores, but how are we pushing? Like the C stores are great, don't get me wrong, but we also wanted to get into the vitamin shops, the
Mhm.
GNC, potentially the big box stores.
Yeah.
For that type of recognition coming from BFL, we need to be able to scale into those types of stores. C stores is only going to take you so far,
Right.
I feel.
Yeah.
So I felt like we had to go back to the drawing board of how we market.
And so what changed?
What changed was our team. Our team changed. We brought in some marketing teams with Simplify, knowing how to do geofencing, knowing how to run specific ads on Facebook, Instagram, you name it, and knowing how to organize our SEOs on Amazon. It was a lot of strategic building when it came to understanding our consumer base, and we also had to make sure that we weren't drowning our runway because we were doing a lot of events. We were doing a lot of expensive events, if you will. We were traveling everywhere. I remember one time we traveled all the way to San Antonio, a 23-hour drive from Maryland. And we came right back around. And, for us, like that's fun. It's very ballsy. But then it's like, okay, well, what do we get out of that
Yeah.
event?
What's the result? Yeah.
What's the result? What's the
Mhm.
ROI? A few photos that it at some point that's not smart.
Yeah.
So our mindset in saying no changed. Learning how to say no changed.
Yeah. And restructuring to the things that would kinda move the needle in regards to
Correct.
the growth. Yeah. So what marketing tactics have you felt been the real drivers post your pivot?
So we started realizing that a good amount of our consumers were diabetics and that they needed a healthier alternative. And we started seeing that, people were not into the fluffy marketing, just having the can in your hand. Are you just being a brand ambassador or just marketing? Just that fluffiness of the marketing. And I started realizing that a good amount of our consumers were not really into the bodybuilding that we were really catering to at first, and they were more so the everyday grinder, the everyday hustle and bustle, and they still got to get up and go to work and be parents. So we started pivoting our marketing towards the everyday person.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want people feeling like our can is only for the bodybuilder. I didn't want people feeling like our can was only for the active workouter.
Yeah.
So I wanted people to realize that you can work every day and still, get your energy. It doesn't have to be 200 milligrams. It doesn't have to be 300 milligrams. It can be healthy.
Yeah.
And we started telling that story. I'll segue into that. We did a USPA event. USPA is a United Powerlifting Association, and we started realizing that these people, a good amount of them were like they fought a good like health battles, and the trend that we were seeing was they were diabetics. Some were diabetics, some were covering from substance abuses and things of that nature.
Mm.
And I said, well, how do we change our formulation? Because at first we started with sucralose and we started doing our research with it. And I said, we got to get away from this. And we had flavoring. And I said, well, if we want to really cater to that ultra healthy and be all natural, we need to completely change our formulation. So we went back to the drawing board. We took out sucralose. We changed it to monk fruit with a
Mm.
red M. We took out the coloring. We took out the artificial flavoring, and we did all the things with the R&D, and that's how we got into Newtopia. We started realizing that that's what our audience wanted. They wanted that actual. If you say it's natural, let it be
Yeah.
natural. We want to
Yeah.
read it. You don't want a person looking at the can and saying, "Hey, what's all these ingredients? We can't read it. What's that mean?"
Right.
So on and so
Right.
forth.
Yeah.
And that was a part of our marketing strategy, and it hit. Ending 2023, going into 2024, we became an overnight sensation with the Powerlifting Association, unknowingly.
Because you had now kind of reformulated to be more meaningful to that consumer.
Correct. Yeah, it took off. I'm happy that we had the right mind to listen to our consumers
Mm-hmm.
because a good amount of companies, sometimes when you've already made your formula and you've already wasted the money, it's like, well, what do you do?
Yeah.
We were able to pivot, even though we lost money, of course, but we were able to pivot enough to where we were able to change that formulation without burning our runway.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I think definitely there's a couple of lessons. One, that, what you start with isn't always what you end with, right?
correct.
And, a lot of, I don't want to say a lot, but definitely I think some founders are super connected to whatever they initially make, and no matter what, don't change it. But it's great that
Yeah,
you were listening to who was buying your product and said, hey, I know we, thought that this was our core demographic and consumer base, but really we need to shift to this. So,
yeah,
and then I think it's great that you started in the C stores and locally, because it gave you the ability to change. And, I know you said there was, of course, some fees associated with it, but not as grand as it would have been if you were in Walmarts all across the country and then had to
right.
had to shift, right? I mean,
Yeah,
honestly, so I think that is all very smart.
definitely.
All very smart. So you said a little bit about getting into the health care. I know you got into two hospitals so far.
Yeah.
How did you do that? Was that through the distributor as well?
No. So the first one, I think it's Carrie Shibboleth. She owns a brand called Southeastern Roastery. And she opened a coffee shop at Cedar Hill Medical Center. And we met before at a startup CPG event. And she remembered me, I remembered her. And, we supported each other. And then she got the opportunity to open up her own coffee cafe at this hospital. And she called me up one day. She's like, hey, I just opened this cafe. I would love to carry your energy drinks. They don't want, what they have. She was like, yeah, they want something more natural. She was like, and I thought of you and you would be perfect here. And I said, well, hey, great. So she placed an order. We went there, we did photo op, and she was just super grateful. And then about 2 weeks later, she was like, "Hey, it's sold out. Can we get one more?" And I'm like, "Yeah, whatever you need."
Right.
So, that was to me was like, okay, the hospital has to agree with it. They have to approve it. So, that was us closing our first hospital account. And then we got an email from a company called Curate, and they are local in the DMV area. And they basically are like a smaller broker, but they cater to a lot of schools, hospitals, certain big retail stores as well. So I said, okay, well, what do you guys need? How did you find us? And they told us how they found us from Southeastern Roastery. And I'm like, really? And I was like,
Ah,
yeah. So we want to bring you guys on. And we did the onboarding. We did all the financial documentations, and a week later, we got a PO order from University of Maryland Medical Center, and we've had our first delivery. Was it yesterday?
wow.
Had our first delivery. 2-hour drive, but it was worth it. And so I was looking at my husband. I'm like, "Are we onto something here? Like going into hospitals?" And he was like, "I think so." You meet for me, Roberta, is this is that's the validation. That's the
Yeah.
ultimate validation,
Yeah.
getting into a hospital, because they definitely, there's the regular consumer, and then there's like doctors and nurses. Like they have to understand the consumer trends, because they need to understand the studies, the medical practices that's happening as well. So, and they're normal everyday people as well, outside of their, doctorate degrees and nursing degrees. So they understand what's going to be bad for the consumer, and what's healthy.
Yeah.
So to me, getting into these two major hospitals was like the ultimate validation for Octane.
Yeah. Yeah. Has that
Yeah.
changed like your initial retail strategy at all?
Yes, it's changing as we speak, honestly, because now I'm starting to get into the mindset of, okay, well, how do we change? Do we need to change our packaging again? Do we need to change how we really highlight the benefits of Octane? We recently came out with a bovine collagen, and that was a game changer for us. And this is something completely new from energy drinks. And I wanted to see, well, are we going to come out with more health focused type of supplements? Which that could be like a tricky game sometimes. But if we're now getting these eyes from the healthcare field, how are we going to pivot into that? And that's still a work in progress, but I feel like we're going to have a lot of resources along the way that's going to help us get there. I don't want to relate too much too soon,
Yeah.
but I feel like we're onto something here with going into hospitals.
Yeah.
Because I do see a good amount of hospitals kind of taking out, even down to the deli meats that have carcinogens. Like
Mm.
they're really becoming more health focused.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to come down into the CPG space as well. Like, getting those certain chips out of the vending machines, getting those certain sodas and energy drinks that they have out of the vending machines. Because what's the point of being in a hospital if you're still feeding toxins?
Yeah. Yeah. And people are being more conscious of turning their products around and looking at labels and reading.
Yeah. One of the things that we noticed coming out of COVID, that people are definitely being more conscious of what they're reading. We downloaded this app called Yuka, and we put Octane on there, and we scored very high. Out of your normal, everyday energy drinks, we're in the green.
Nice. That's great.
Yeah, it's definitely
Yeah.
great. We realized in that moment, like, okay, how do we make sure that this speaks to the people that do not know the different, because there's a good amount of marketing out there that will dress it up and say, "Hey, we're an energy drink, we're all natural," when you're really a pre-workout,
Yeah. Yeah.
and some people won't know the difference.
Yeah. So with your initial focus on energy drinks and then kind of, entrancing into supplements, what made you do that? How did you start to think differently in regards to what the brand represented?
Can I be honest?
Yeah.
For me, this is going to be a little stacked. For me, I wanted to do something differently because I was tired of feeling like we wasn't being heard or being seen from the masses of what people deem as great energy drinks. When we first started, Roberta, we prided ourselves on being the first Black woman-owned, veteran-owned energy drink in the market, and we still are. And when we pitched to, different people, when we went to that one event, we met with a Pepsi buyer, and we told him our story. And he said, "Why don't you guys lead with that?" I said, "Well, we hear a good amount of times that, people don't care. People don't want to hear that." And he was like, "No, but that's your story." And I'm
Yeah.
like, "But depending on that consumer, they don't care." And I felt like, you know what? I don't need them to care. I need them to care about the brand. I don't need them to care that we're Black owned, woman owned, veteran owned. I need them to care about what our brand brings to the table.
Mhm.
And I wanted that to speak louder going into our 3rd year and our 4th year. And, when I started realizing that, if we're not gonna get that recognition the way that I feel like we need to, then we need to pivot into something else, but still make sure that Octane is here in different sectors. We're not just energy drinks. We're not just, a bovine collagen. We've entered into the powerlifting sector as well. We have powerlifting singlets. We've gone into merch. Like, we've gone into these different facets because we wanna bring our consumers different things.
Mhm.
We're number 10 right now in the powerlifting singlet category, and that's a big step for us.
Yeah.
So I didn't want us to just be so solely focused on being the energy drink brand
Mhm.
because, in all transparency, I felt like us being who we are, people do have their favorite go-tos, where sometimes can be set up to fail. And I didn't want that story for us. I heard this podcast speaker, I can't remember her name, but she's a part of Black Ambition, and she said, sometimes Black founders are underfunded and over-mentored.
I heard that. I heard that. I don't know who it was from, but I heard that as well. Yeah.
And that resonated with me so much because I've been feeling like that for the past 3 years, that we are underfunded and over-mentored. And, you can go to as many pitches as you want, you can submit yourself for categories or sample placements, but sometimes it's just set up for you not to win. So how do you win?
Mhm.
And how do you win in a space that is, saturated? And for me, I said Octane is not going to be one of those brands that you see for 2, 3 years and then they diminish. I didn't want that to be our story. So I said in order for us to not be that story, we have to pivot. We have to bring our consumers things that they don't expect from us. And that's how we came out with the bovine collagen, and we're coming out with other supplements as well. And going back into stacking that conversation, I made sure that we also partnered with different brands that also understood our vision and also understood our mission when it came to being substantial in this industry, being legacy. And we actually are in production right now with a new energy drink. This will be our 4th SKU. We'll be launching in this summer with a brand called Sturker. They're really big in the strongman industry, and they've introduced us into strongman. And that relationship in itself brought us into sponsoring the Arnold Weekend for 2 events. And this will be our first time at the Arnold Expo. I'm super grateful, super blessed about it, and we're gonna kick ass.
It seems like you're still, of course, like growing your hero, but then also creating products around for your consumer to really have a whole experience within Octane, supporting
Exactly.
all of their kind of routines and needs.
Yeah. Because for me, in the energy drink space, like learning it and studying it like every day is a study.
Yeah.
There's energy drinks that's coming out every day. Different types with collagen, you name it, protein. Yeah,
Yeah.
everybody's putting protein in everything. It's a ever growing market. I think it's reaching what 190 million or what have you. Like it's getting up there. It's good. It's growing. It's energy drinks aren't going anywhere.
Mm,
So for me, it's like okay, well, it's only going to get even more saturated. So do you keep coming out with more energy drinks and just trying to drive the market in so many different facets, or do you bring out more products that the consumer really wants, and it's always going to lead them back to your energy drink?
mhm.
That's your flagship.
Mhm.
And that's been our mindset. That's been our thinking these days, and it's been working for us.
Yeah. I like too how you're within energy, which definitely is super competitive in space, but also very like broad in the SKU selection within the
Mhm.
brands. But it seems like you're being really strategic and coming out with, not a big, crazy amount of SKUs, but the SKUs that you feel really can create the right mix within your assortment and growing slower.
2 different brands that we took that approach. They were more like blueprints for us and how we wanted to have Octane grow and scale. One was, Red Bull and the other was Ghost. So, Ghost, I'll mention from the sense of, the founder was, a bodybuilder and, me being in that space, you know, you see all the different brands that do sponsorships and, they're on the banners and stuff, and I never really saw them on sponsorships, but people knew their brand. They knew how to find them. They started out as a supplement brand. Then they came out with the energy drinks, and their energy drinks took them over. And then I'm like, okay, well, you never really saw them sponsoring a whole bunch of events, but people just knew where to get them and where to
Mm-hmm.
find them. So I'm like, okay, well, they're being strategic about that. They don't have to be everywhere. And that's why we changed that up. And
Yeah.
then we started looking at how Red Bull did their marketing. When you think Red Bull, you think extreme sports. You outside of the box type of sports, and they're catering to that hardcore extreme consumer and whatever it is, dance, jumping off a plane, you name
Mm-hmm.
it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, they don't really target the everyday person. They target what is extreme. Well, it's one of their facets at least. But I was looking at, well, how do we market that way, being so small in our capacity? And we started realizing that power lifters was our bread and butter. Strongman was our bread and butter. Don't get me wrong, bodybuilding is great, but that powerlifting strongman community, they're a beast. They're a whole different beast. And we took that love that they had for us, and we started realizing that these people, they want to root for that hometown person
Mm-hmm.
that's doing their first meet, and they're being sponsored by Octane, and we're going to go there and support Octane. And it comes with the whole thing, that local Planet Fitness gym or One Life gym, they want to bring Octane there because this hometown person is doing a power meeting and he attends that gym. Like, that's what we started realizing, and we started making sure, like, okay, well, if we're going to be representing this power lifter, we're going to do a 3 for all. We're going to go to this gym. We're going to go to this nutritional store that they consume.
Yeah.
And that was a part of our marketing strategy as well. So it's worked out for us so well.
Yeah.
Because we believe in putting our consumers first, and our consumers have become our brand ambassadors.
Yeah. I think too, what you were saying, like, Ghosts big the reason in which they were able to build and not be in the face of, what you were saying in regards to sponsors is that they built from community. And
Hmm.
that's how everybody knew, like, when the drops were, what the new launches are. They were waiting
Yeah,
until it dropped, and I do see similarity in what you're saying in regards to building in this community and, like,
yeah,
being where they are and, like, really,
yeah,
being a part of their everyday so that they're continuously, like, connected to the brand.
exactly. Because for us, it's everyone's everyday story. We've changed a lot of lives when it comes to our story. For one, just building a brand and still working everyday jobs
Which is
and
another
being parents.
question I have for you. Because how are you doing this? How are you, creating? Do you sleep? Like, working full time, you have 3 kids, you're strategizing and creating a brand. Like, how are you able to manage all of that?
You just do it. I don't know how else to really say it. You just do it. You gotta want to do it. If you don't do it, you must not want it. That's really how I feel about it. I'm from Mississippi, small town Mississippi, and I'm used to my family just grinding and getting out of that small town, and looking for something more and yearning for something more. That's my roots, where I come from. I was a single mom, very young. I have 2 children. I have a 19-year-old and a 16-year-old. And, when I married my husband, he didn't have any children, and he wanted a kid. And I'm like, all right, well, that's going to be that's going to be the slicing of the cake right there. Do I want another? And we had another child, and we had another child in 2020, in 2024. And we took a little step back from Octane, but it was, we were still there. And I wanted to make sure that I didn't get lost in myself with having another kid and still, working, and it could be tough at times. There are days where I'm like, forget this. There was one, 2 years ago, I almost said, enough with Octane. But I didn't want to let the people down that grew with us. I am a true believer of work ethic. And for me, I've never thought about quitting my corporate career, because I do also understand that this economy is fickle. And I also know that we're not at that stage to where I could just walk away from my corporate job. Could I? Yes. Could we? Yes. But I have a family, and anything can go wrong. And I think for me, it's okay to do both. Social media sometimes can feed you the craziest fairy tales, and people will fall for it. And I say to any woman that is still working her corporate career, it's okay to do both if you know how to juggle and know how to manage your time and know how to pray. So,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, it's tough at moments, but like I said, you gotta want to do it. You gotta want to do both, and I plan on doing both for quite some time.
yeah. So what's next for Octane Energy? What are your goals for this year?
So this year, like I said, we're going to the Arnold. We have been selected to do called Drinking with Benefits in September. We're going to go back to Olympia this year. Going to be, I think, September or October of this year. We're coming out with our fourth SKU. We're probably going to be doing a whey protein.
Okay.
I'm not going to put too much information out there about it, but we are also in the talks with Murphy's USA. I'm excited about that. It's been about a month long talk right now, courting each other. So that for me, that distribution is going to take Octane over. I do also believe that getting into these hospitals and different healthcare sectors is also going to take Octane over. I'm not really yearn to be in a big box store only because of the potential financial setback that it could take us. But like I said, we just entered into our fourth year. We're still kind of small for us. And, some people will say, no, no, you're not. I'm like, to me, we are. And I'm okay with that because we're still growing. We still have so much to learn. We still have so many resources that we have not pivoted into. We got approached by Shark Tank twice. And
Really?
yeah, yeah, sure did. And so for me, it's like, okay, they're knocking. Why aren't we ready? And I don't know if it's just a fear for me, but I think this year we'll be ready.
That's so exciting. There's something you're
It-
doing that they continue to
It's something
feel,
we're doing.
right? That they're continuing to
Yeah.
look at you. Even when you turn them down, they're still coming back
I think that's probably what's attracting them.
around.
We keep saying no. So, but yeah.
Yeah, that's so exciting. Thank you so much, Tony, for coming on. I would love for you to be able to share with our listeners where they can continue to support you, follow you, as well. Most importantly, purchase Octane.
So you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Threads at octaneenergy.com. You can find us on LinkedIn as well. And you can order from us, www.octaneenergy.com. And what else? We're located in about 100 plus C stores within the DMV area. We have a few more listings that we're going to be showcasing as well on our Instagram stories. So look out for that.
Excellent.
And I want to thank you, Roberta, for giving me this amazing platform. You, like I said before, you have inspired a good amount of us founders. You've given us a breath of fresh air to speak our truth. And thank you for that because a good amount of that is not done enough, in my eyes at least. And I thank you for giving us this platform to share our stories and our beginnings.
I appreciate it. I appreciate you. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Thanks.